Tuesday the 25th of March 2014. Just to remind everyone that the meeting will be recorded and the recording will subsequently be made available for public listening. Do you have any apologies?
Morning. We have a resignation of Mr. Birrell. He tendered his resignation last week due to health reasons, and I have 5 members not in, but I have not received apologies. Councillor Brodie, Councillor Ian Carruthers, Karen Carruthers, Councillor Yen and Councillor Nicholl.
Apologies, Councillor Nicholl.
There's 18 members present this morning. Sorry, Mr. Okay. Thank you, 18 present.
Thank you, Claire. Just in terms of Timothy Burrell's leaving the Education Committee, I know he's served on the committee as long as I have, so it's at least 7 years. I don't know how long he has been on, so I think it would be appropriate for the Education Committee to record our thanks for all the work he's done in terms of the committee. He has been a very assiduous attendee, etc. So if we could just record that. Right. Do we have any declarations of interest? No. Okay, can we move on to item 3, the minutes of the meeting of 19th of February 2014? Can I have someone move them as correct? Happy to move, Chairman. And seconded, Councillor Ted Thompson. Thank you. Claire Renton is due to speak to item 7, the Langholm Primary School statutory consultation, but she does need to be away fairly quickly, so can we agree to take that as the next item on the agenda? Yep. Okay. Thank you. Claire?
Many thanks for that, Chair. We've obviously presented the summary paper along with all the consultation documents and the response from Education Scotland. I think the documents are quite simple and speak for themselves, but what we're asking members is to note the completion of the formal statutory consultation process. And just as a reminder, that is the moving of the primary school at Langholm over to the site adjacent to the secondary school to form a 3-18 campus arrangement. And that is currently happening as we speak. The existing building was not fit for purpose and very poor condition, and we did see the benefits of having a new build co-located with the secondary school to benefit the learners. So we're looking for the formal approval from this committee about the relocation of the primary school in line with the formal statutory consultation process. There's been no formal items raised with us by any of the consultees or users, and all the documents are presented as the requirements of the process and Education Scotland, which has been included in your documents today. Happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Claire. Any comments, any observations on the report? Ronnie?
Just move the recommendations.
Everybody happy with that? Okay. Thanks very much. Right, so if we go back to item 4, the Director's 6-monthly assessment of business plan performance in education services. This is the usual 6-monthly update on the progress of delivery of the 2012-15 business plan, and Gillian Bridson speaking to this. Is there anything you want to add to the report, Gillian?
Really just to highlight, it gives an overview of where we are with the 91 performance indicators that were agreed last year in September as part of the business plan. So some of these performance indicators are new for your information. We feel it's an overall very positive report. It continues to be a work in progress. As you can see from the report, 85% of our work is on track. 10% of the indicators do require a closer focus for improvement. However, half of those measures relate to the primary 7 data from last February. So from the 9 indicators that we need to look at more closely, 5 of them relate to the primary 7 standardised assessment data that was conducted last February. The deadline for this year's primary 7 is Monday. So I'll be happy to update members after the Easter holidays with this current year's cohort. The exception report sets out closer actions that we're taking, particularly on closing the attainment gap for more vulnerable pupils. We are very pleased with the positive destinations, which has improved significantly. And another positive is our attainment, particularly in S2 boys, S4 and S6. But again, there's a lot of information in the report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, I'll open the report to the floor. I've got one speaker, which is Ian Dick.
Thanks, Chair. Just on page 30 regarding the unique pupil log-ons to GLOW, has obviously raised questions about the numbers that are actually logging in. According to the improvement action section and how we're performing, there are different systems. I'm just wondering why that was the case. Was there not some uniformity when these were installed? I also note that they're expecting to upgrade the operating systems from Windows XP to Windows 7, which was supposed to have happened last year and didn't, and I just wonder why not. And finally, can I just ask about what's the assessment of the value of GLOW? Have we got any way of saying how it's helped children learn?
Thank you. The Windows 7 is an ongoing issue with us. We have nearly 9,000 units across our school estate, our school infrastructure estate. So there are a lot of PCs to be upgraded. On a practical basis, it's very difficult to upgrade all of the PCs in a school while the pupils are there. A whole school has to be done at the same time. It should have been done last summer, as you can see from the exception report. We hoped to have it done in October. That was not possible, but we do have assurances from Business and Technology Solutions that it will be done this summer. So we're expecting it to be done, and I know that it has been piloted in 2 primary schools. It's a significant task for the technicians, and we will hopefully have a more appropriate operating platform, which will then allow the pupils to access GLOW. At the moment, they cannot, because the operating system that is being used is not allowing them to do that. In terms of your second question, there is no national or local evaluation of the direct contribution that GLOW makes to learning and teaching. But once we have the operating platform up and running, once we have new GLOW up and running, I think it's a perfect place to start in terms of that important evaluation that needs to take place.
I think Rob wants to come in on this.
Thanks, Chairman. Yes, it's on the same point. I'm aware, although I'm not much of a techie, that Microsoft support for Windows XP finishes at the end of this month or thereabouts. I just wonder if BIT have sort of risk assessed that, because obviously there will be a period in which we'll be using an operating system on a lot of machines that won't have any ongoing product support. I would assume that's not an issue of immediate concern, but the longer that they run without it, it maybe becomes more of a problem. So just wondered if that's kind of been fed into the considerations of this.
Absolutely, and I'm not much of a techie either, but I understand that we are now in a business critical situation with Windows XP. It is unsupported as from Easter, and therefore we do require the assurances from Business and Technology Solutions in order that when we move to Windows 7 with some urgency. But we are starting an audit process next week, looking at all the software in all primary and secondary schools to ensure that transition to Windows 7 is smooth.
Ted?
Thank you, Chair. I just refer to page 4, 3.8, attainment in secondary schools. I note there that girls' average results show that they are significantly below national average in measures apart from science. And I was wondering if there are some underlying reasons for that and what kind of steps we might be taking to address it.
This is a very interesting finding. We did not expect these results. In fact, I asked for them to be checked twice because it really was a bit counterintuitive. But the good thing about having data is the purpose of having data is that we can use it to seek improvement. So we now know that these S2 girls in some cases are underperforming, and that the secondary coordinators are looking at individual pupils, individual tracking and monitoring, and individual target setting to make sure that this doesn't happen again. We're looking at the new S2s will be tested again over the Easter period, and it'll be really interesting to see if that has been one glitch or whether we're actually looking at a trend. It's just one snapshot, it's just one 3-week period. Director?
Could I add to that, Chair? I mean, there's always a positive and a negative, isn't there, in stories, and certainly it is only S2. Interestingly, across the country over a long number of years, girls have been doing far better than boys consistently at every level. Some of that has probably changed because society's maybe changed a wee bit in terms of sometimes the Ladette culture has probably been something that's been blamed on a change from girls' attitude always being positive and always being about trying to succeed, and that's quite interesting. So there's work being done on that agenda, but the big positive is, of course, that we would have expected the boys to be doing poorly. No, we wouldn't expect them to do poorly, but we would not have expected such really good results from the boys. So you're trying to balance those things up, and what we can now do is interject and do a wee bit of additional work around that particular group of girls. It's important not to take that short summary of S2 and extrapolate it for everybody, but it is a very interesting finding and something that we want to act on.
Thanks, Colin. I think Ian wanted to be back in. I missed him before.
Yeah, just to go back to the GLOW thing and IT in general, can we have an assurance, basically, that there is that GLOW and IT systems used in education in general are all done through the IT unit with full consultation, and there's no unilateral purchasing of systems which are incompatible with other sources, and also that there's a tie-up with perhaps systems within other services within the council?
And I think David McKee wanted to come in on GLOW as well.
Thank you, Chairman. I realise the light behind me is distracting. Yes. He's getting on to me now. This GLOW, I've raised this issue over the past number of years. It appears that we're not getting any performance from it. How much is it costing us, and how much is it going to cost to get it working? The information I'm getting is that students use a system Edmodo, whoever Edmodo is. But this appears to be the system. Now, I think we need to get IT sorted out. It's an absolute disgrace that they were going to do this work last year and haven't done it. I think that's an absolute disgrace, and that should have been brought to us just after when they didn't have it done. So I would hope that he address these issues. And just for an idea, how long's GLOW been installed in schools? And it's still we're still not getting don't seem to be getting a great deal of success with it.
Can I pick up on that one, Chair? Well, first of all, in terms of, I wouldn't like to use the word disgrace around something not having been done last summer. I'm certain that TS will have reason. There'll be very good reasons why they weren't able to do it last summer. What we need to do is work really closely with them to make sure it does get done this summer. The second issue is that GLOW doesn't in itself cost anything. There's no contract for GLOW. It's the IT service and the people that we've got working on it and the hardware that we have that costs money. So GLOW itself doesn't cost anything. The issue has been for Scottish schools over the last number of years is that GLOW's been a bit clunky. It hasn't always performed perfectly. It's been a bit slow to open. And teachers and kids in general have had mixed views of the use of GLOW. The whole point of the change and to get to son of GLOW is to something that's much more modern, much more accessible and more easily usable by everybody. So that's where we're getting to. The problem with old Edmodo is that in any other system, and this ties into what Councillor Dick was saying, what we need to be careful about is it's not just as simple as using other platforms, because you need to have securities. We can't afford to have data protection issues arising. It's not a matter of simply switching on your machine in a school that you bring in and using it. So that's all quite complex and complicated, but we're working really carefully and closely with TS to try to find solutions to those issues.
I've just been advised that Windows 7 is being overtaken by Windows 8. Should we not be aiming for that rather than Windows 7?
That's always Windows 7 and it cost that.
We could seek professional advice from TS to that question.
Okay, I've got Jim McComb.
Thanks, Chair. I notice in 3.6 on page 4 that a service performance is benchmarked against the previous year's performance. Is there not an argument for benchmarking it against the average of the 3 previous years rather than just 1 year?
Gillian?
Thank you. I welcome any discussion regarding the benchmarking. I mean, certainly we've put a lot of energy into having a range of benchmarks, not only for our target, but also for our thresholds. And I think that's very helpful because in any cohort, you're going to get some fluctuation. So having an average of the 3 year, I noticed that the local government benchmarking framework has gone down that model. So that would be very helpful for us. So I'll take that back. Thank you.
Jim Dempster?
Thanks, Chair. An observation maybe rather than a question, but it's on page 21 and it's about the most deprived data zones, and I see that the upward trend there, and I see the explanation why it's happening, but it does say when how we are performing section information is expected in March. I hope that does indicate that we are indeed addressing that issue, and I see that the resource implication will be done within existing resources, but I was still anxious to see that these kids have been encouraged to achieve, and I take on board what the report actually says, and it's just an observation.
Thanks, Jim. Alison?
Thanks, Chair. I wonder if I should first declare an interest in view of the Director's health warning. I did assist my granddaughter on Sunday evening to do her French homework accessing Edmodo, but she did the accessing, not me. So I averted my gaze when that happened. However, my question is regarding the exclusion figures on pages 25 and 26 of Appendix 2. And I take the point that it may just be, we're dealing with small numbers here, but I hope that is it a glitch or a trend or something that we're confident we're addressing?
Thank you. Certainly, we've looked at this we are constantly monitoring looked after and mainstream exclusions, particularly in primary. And I think in the last 2 performance reports, we've highlighted that we're working on this. Certainly, we've had a number of new head teachers. The director and team are consistently flagging up that we are monitoring this, and that with that closer focus, looking at what schools can do for these small numbers of very challenging youngsters who've got multi-agency support.
Ian?
Thanks, Chair. Just going back to the numbers of questions that have been raised about GLOW and IT systems there, should we not have had somebody from TS in the room, particularly with the concerns that are expressed within the body of this report, and some of the technical questions that have been raised?
Well, what could maybe, if I could pick that one up, Chair, I could maybe suggest Graham McAlorum will be going and talking to our next LNCT meeting, providing a short report for the staff and unions at the next meeting, because this whole report contains many KPIs. Then I don't think we would have necessarily been able to predict particularly which ones members would have most interest in. On the other hand, if you're asking, could we ask for TS to come along to the May committee and maybe give a brief report and answer some questions, then we can obviously ask them to do that. Would that help?
Yeah, I think that would be helpful, since this seems to arise every 6 months or so, if we did have somebody along to give us an update.
Thank you, Chair. Just looking on page 20 about the number of primary schools with 2 hours of PE a week. The data we've got there is for 12-13. Have we got a provisional figure for 13-14 yet?
No, I'm afraid not. We are going out to our physical activity strategy. There will be a new appointment for a physical activity coordinator, again to continue the support for schools, but we don't have the up-to-date figures. We should get that in June.
I have no more speakers indicating, so can we move to the recommendation? Can we agree the recommendations as a block? Yep. Okay, thanks, sir. We move on to item 5, Education Committee appointments outside bodies. I think Gillian's speaking to this. Again, is there anything you want to add?
Not really. This is the report probably could have come to committee slightly earlier following changes in October 2013, but this report allows members to review the representation and to make appointments to these bodies.
So if we go through the the various bodies in the order in which they are in the report at the moment. In terms of the Aberdour Crannog policy, we need 2 members. Richard Brodie is currently a member on that. Unfortunately, he's not here, so we don't know whether he wants to continue or not. Would anybody else be interested in serving on that particular body? Colin? Yeah. And
If Colin's put his name forward, I'm happy with that. Just I didn't think there was any takers there. Did he say Colin there?
Yeah.
I was just going to say, Chair, Councillor Brodie indicated yesterday he would be happy to continue.
Okay, so if we go with Colin and Dick Brodie, yep. Agreed. Okay, so we're now looking for 3 members to the Dumfries and Galloway Childcare Partnership. Do we have any? Oh, sorry. At the moment, we have Rob Davidson. I think Rob's fair to continue. Is that right? Yeah. Gail?
I'm happy to continue, but I think I was on it as Chair of Education, so maybe we should switch roles. But I'm happy to continue on it as the 3rd member if you wished.
Right. Okay, and Alistair Witts. Alistair? I think possibly, right, I'll go on as Chair of the Education Committee. Okay, so we agreed on that. Yep. And the final one is 6 members of the Dumfriesshire Educational Trust. So that's 6 members from this committee and 2 each from the Andale-Nestdale Area Committee and Nestdale Area Committee. So it's the 6 members from this committee we're looking for. Do you have any volunteers? Oh, sorry, yeah. Yeah, we've got Rob Davidson, Yen, Alistair Witts are on there at the moment. Are you happy to continue? Yeah, Yen? Yeah. I'm happy to go on as chair of the committee again. Jim, are you indicating your...
I thought maybe I'm getting mixed up with the John Wallace Trust, but there's one of these particular trusts requires a member from Sanker, so, and I've been given committee papers for the last meeting, so I presume I'm a member. If no, I'm quite happy to participate.
Well, we also do have members from the Nithsdale Area Committee, so I don't know whether you're on through that particular route. Yeah? And Ted?
Yes, Chair, I would be interested in going on.
So what's the running total now? We're still one more.
Chair, I think myself and Councillor Diggle sit on it from Andale-Nestdale Committee, and I would just say to the members in the room, it's incredibly efficiently chaired. John Gare starts at 9:15 and is usually done by 10 o'clock, so it's not a massive commitment. So, and it's a very interesting trust to sit on, so I think if any members are interested, it would be worthwhile them sitting on it.
Well, Gail's obviously selling this very well, so could we have one more member? John?
I'll be quite happy to sit in that.
Okay. Okay. Right. Thanks. So if we can move on to, we've done item 7, sorry, item 6. Oh, yeah. Item 6, the implementation of partnership schools following the cluster working review, and it's Gillian again and Alison Gold. Is there anything you want to add to the paper, Gillian?
Thank you. Just by way of introduction, thank you, Chair. Members asked for a 6-monthly progress report on the implementation of partnership schools following the cluster working review. The last progress report was in September 2014. As the report highlights, of the planned 25 partnerships, 20 are now active. Staff are appointed, they're attending specific training and induction for both heads and for principal teachers. The appendix lists for members' information the status of the agreed partnerships now and at the end of the implementation period in August 2016. And I'd like to introduce Alison Gold, who was seconded from Kirkcudbright Academy as the implementation officer. So we're happy to take any questions.
Yeah, I think on page 38, the top sort of sums this up. Early fears from some parent communities have been resolved by the new management teams. I think that has been very successful, not least because we've actually planned for this rather than having it been bounced into it now. Speaking to the director, Rob and I, out with the meeting, I think we're being held up as a shining example of how to actually manage this cluster working of schools, which is causing a lot of problems in a lot of particularly rural authorities in terms of pulling these small schools together. So have I got any speakers to this? Jim Dempster?
It's just again, just a general question. there are 2 triple partnerships, and we experienced some pressure prior to one in my ward being agreed, and there appears to be no difficulty at all. I'd just like some assurance or reassurance that's the case. It's about both triple partnerships anyway, rather than twin partnerships.
Yes, we
Might be specific, it's just in general terms, how are triple partnerships working?
About triple partnerships. Yes, we're aware that triple partnerships bring with them additional dimensions, and we're working with the head teachers of the triple partnerships and considering various strategies in response to the needs that they are identifying. So, for example, at the moment we're currently exploring video conferencing as a means of helping to bring the staff together at various different schools within triples. And that at the moment has been well received by the one particular head teacher that I've engaged with. And I'm working with Alan Cameron, who's responsible for that particular initiative at the moment, to move that forward. There's also other strategies involved, also looking at sort of the PT requirements, etc.
So you don't have any difficulty with a triple that you wouldn't experience with a double, that it's quite reasonable to adopt that approach?
I think, again, I would go back to what I say. I think we acknowledge that there are additional dimensions in triples, and we anticipated certain things, and we're obviously now working with the people who are on the ground and who are delivering in triples, and where they're identifying a specific need, we're looking for ways to address that need, and we will continue to do that. That's not something that's going to stop. I think see that as being an ongoing process. We're only sort of 10 weeks down the line here, you know, and it's the head teachers there are to be commended for the work that they've done so far.
Thanks for that. Thanks, Chair.
Ian Dick.
Thanks, Chair. Can I just ask that although there's the envisaged partnerships are scheduling for August 2016, I take it there'll still be an element of flexibility depending on local circumstances. And could I ask about, just in general terms, I'm not looking at any specific, has there been any vociferous resistance to any of the partnerships at all that would hold up or stop an envisaged partnership?
Alison might add some detail to this. The flexibility is that some new partnerships or triples might happen earlier than this, because what we're saying is by 2016, in some cases maybe there may be 2 incumbents across 3 schools, and one of those head teachers gets another job, for example, and we would move more quickly. So it could happen earlier, but by and large we would anticipate that by August 2016 all of these would be in place. I think, again, I would go back to what Alison said earlier in response to Councillor Dempster's question, that the triples, along with other partnerships, it's not been all plain sailing. We're having to work hard, and in a couple of the triples in particular, where there have been some staffing difficulties, we've had to work really hard. But we don't stop within 10 weeks and review things. We work on, and given the number of successes we're having across triples and partnerships, we're confident that we can roll that out everywhere. But it's not been plain sailing. We're having to work hard. We haven't, I don't think, had any specific resistance to the pairings, if that's what you mean, or specific schools going with other schools, other than the ones that we addressed. If you remember, Bridekirk and Elm Vale has caused us some angst at an early stage, but we've resolved that one. And other than that, and we resolved the Money I've one too, I think we've always worked to resolve those matters. So it will be ongoing work, quite a lot of hard work, but we're convinced that by the end of it we'll have a far more strategic management hold on our schools.
Colin?
Ultimately, the final interviews for Kirkcudbright had to be cancelled due to the non-availability of members. And I checked with the office before I came out, and they're working to see that the interview could be rescheduled for the first week after the Easter holidays, depending upon the availability of members at that time.
Ian Crowes?
Thanks, Chairman. Just to agree with your sentiments at the beginning, a lot of hard work went into this, and we've certainly seen the improvements as times went on. Page 41, just at the bottom of the column on the right-hand side, just third for the bottom, it does refer to Crotherstone, Cummertrees and Bridekirk in brackets with a little star kind of asterisk here. just to get an explanation, please, on what that means. I think I know what it means. I think it's looking at the future, but just if we could have an explanation on that, please.
Colin?
Yeah, I think we've started that one because you may remember the particular complications around Bridekirk and Elm Vale, and when we reassessed the fact that Elm Vale's school roll was projected to go above 150, it meant we had to unpick Bridekirk from there. Because we had already agreed that Carrotherstown and Comertrees were on their own as a partnership, the obvious place for Bridekirk to go was with them. But to automatically assume that that would go within the timescale seemed unreasonable because it was kind of after the event. So at the moment, the Bridekirk joining Carrotherstown and Comertrees is based on the agreement that it would be in the fullness of time being when the head teacher at Bridekirk chooses to retire, which may be within the 3 years or could be slightly further away, and that's why that one has an asterisk. Ian.
Okay, thanks. I hope that's what it was. So thanks for that clarification. All the hard work, I appreciate it as well.
And Gail?
Thank you, Chair. Just referring to page 38, the first paragraph, at the end it says early fears from some parent communities have been resolved. We sort of focus on negatives a lot, in papers like this and the problems that have happened. And I wonder if Alison could maybe give us a bit of an overview of some of the positives that have potentially come out of the early partnerships already, or is it too early for that? Because I think it's quite nice to hear some positive things rather than always the negatives.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to do that. I would very much like to talk to that because by 4 weeks in, I was receiving information about joint burn suppers that were being held between schools. We've also had a really nice story from out in the West where 2 of the primary schools have come together. One had a football team who played in blue, another played in red. They've come together to have a joint football team, and the children have designed the strip and made it purple in order to take both schools on together. We've had really good examples of staff who have completed online training, for example, Jolly Phonics, and where normally they would have been working on their own then to implement that policy on Jolly Phonics. Because they're now in a partnership, individual teachers from 2 schools have now come together and have done some further staff development work together. There have been joint development meetings, there's been joint planning. There was a special piece of work done by a partnership plus schools that weren't in a partnership on space, which involved an entire day's worth of activity. There was a very successful event recently on an eco day where the 2 schools were brought together as part of the partnership as well. There's been a wide range of very successful events, and again, just perhaps going back to the comment that was made earlier, that in communities where there was just concern perhaps that the individual identity was going to be lost, or there was just that little bit of concern and anxiety, those things are in many of the cases now melting away as the parents are actually seeing the advantages of coming together. And for the first time yesterday, I was questioned by a parent who wanted to know when their child was going to be able to access the benefits of partnership because they weren't actually in a partnership at that time. One other just little event that I think is worth noting is that children are now being able to access national and regional and national events as part of a partnership. If the example I could give you is that with regard to football teams, where in the past there haven't been enough children in a school in order to run a football team to enter, say, a regional competition. I spoke to Dumfries and Galloway Schools Football Association and asked them to represent the case to the Scottish Schools Football Association, asking that partnerships be recognised as the source of one team. And both the local association and the national body have agreed to that. So for the first time, there are children in small schools here are going to be able to access that type of activity. And what I'm now asking head teachers to do is to give me a list of other cultural or sporting activities where perhaps we need to make the same bid to the governing bodies so that these children can have a wider range of opportunities. And head teachers are saying to me, yes, we're tired, yes, we're challenged by this, and we know that there are long term, but then they're saying to me, but it's really exciting and it's working, and they're seeing the children's social groups are expanding and the children's horizons are expanding as well.
Thanks, Alison. Yeah, I think it is becoming obvious that there are a lot of benefits in terms of the cluster working. I think really we're through the worst part of the year in terms of the dark nights, etc., where it's much more difficult to bring these organisations together, and hopefully, it will blossom now that we're getting into the lighter nights and hopefully the better weather. I've got no more speakers, I don't think. Nope. In which case, can we move to the recommendations? And agree, we have noted the progress and a very interesting bit of background to it as well. Thank you. So we've done item 7. If we move to item 8, and it's Anne Campbell and Andy Patty who are speaking to this. So this is the service review, specifically the supporting learner service review, which is the first part of the overarching review of education services. So Anne and Andy, is there anything you want to add to the report?
Sorry, I forgot what to press. Just to add that the request for service review came through Education Committee in November 2013, and the area we're currently looking at is supporting learners. The calendar of steps was set out in December of last year to meet with the process outlined in the Council's Service Review Toolkit. A service review team began meeting on the 10th of January to consider this complex and important area of education services practice. Today is step 16 on page 3 of Appendix 2 in a process that will ultimately lead to proposals to Education Committee on the 25th of November 2014. From the process so far, the Service Review team has identified the planned outcomes from the review in 3.10 in the committee paper. There's a recognition that currently some elements of the service are allocated on a formula basis, and we need to consider the Scottish indices of multiple deprivation and local deprivation factors when meeting pupils' needs, if we are to tackle any gaps in achievement and better align resources to need. In terms of universal support, and I hope that's explained clearly in the paperwork, which is the responsibility of all classroom teachers, we need to increase our professional development programme to help classroom practitioners to better meet the needs of all learners. Importantly, we need to develop a strategy to take account of succession management and the potential loss of any expertise, and allow managers in schools to have the flexibility to maximise staff resources to support their learners best. They know their own learners' needs better than anybody else. We recognise there are areas of the service that offer, if not the same, similar services, and so in order to remove any duplication, we need to look more closely at this and improve our processes. We believe we need to have a clear articulation of what we mean by inclusion, and the ultimate goal of independence for learners, where appropriate. Therefore, intervening early and having more robust quality assurance mechanisms are also areas for consideration. The picture presented here hopefully gives members an idea of the complexities and challenges within supporting learners, and we're happy to take questions or provide clarity, if we can, on any of the points.
Thank you, Anne. I think it's obvious from Appendix 1, there are a lot of different ways of supporting learners, and basically I think because a lot of these have been produced piecemeal over the years, effectively what we need to do is to sort of meld them all together so that we don't have discontinuities in terms of the service, because at the end of the day what we want to do is to give the best support possible for the learners. This isn't about saving money at the end of the day, it's about streamlining the system to make it more suitable for the learners and their families, etc., in terms of the support we give. So the first part of the recommendations effectively is to agree the scope. So if we can open that up for debate, do you think, or do members think there's anything which has been missed in terms of the scope? Oh, sorry, Councillor Dick.
Thanks. Just on page 86 there, I'm quite pleased to see the planned outcomes from the review in terms of efficiency savings and planned outcomes. The efficiency savings are certainly within the parameters of the strategic direction I think has been given to the Council. What I'd possibly like to see is something maybe under bullet point 4 which indicates quite clearly that organisational structures review should include cross-sectoral activity. I think it's important that that's actually stipulated specifically. And the planned outcomes, I would add a bullet point 5 or a number 5, which states that one of our outcomes is improvement of the delivery of support for learners. And if I could just ask a question in relation to a cross-sectoral activity with education, as is clear from the responsible managers and service review team members, which includes the senior child protection officer. What links actually exist at the present between education and social work services in relation to the deliveries of children's services?
Andrew?
Yeah, that senior child protection officer is actually jointly managed by myself and social work. And each service also has its own child protection officer, so we have a separate education child protection officer as well as that senior child protection officer who's jointly managed with myself and social work. And I also sit in the child protection committee on behalf of Education Department.
Rob, you want to come in next?
Yes, thanks very much, Chairman. Just very much leading on from Councillor Dick's point and in relation to the way in which this work, I mean, clearly it's an education service review, but it does interrelate with work with social work services and indeed NHS colleagues. So really just to make sure that we're confident we've got the buy-in and the support from both those organisations as and when we require it, because it will, at least in some cases, have a material impact on what we're looking at ourselves. So just to be clear that we've actually got that and that's in there to help us when we need it.
What we've got is we've got a social work representative on the group who's not yet been able to join us, but we have invited them and they have agreed to participate. And I am about to meet them. We also invited somebody from health, and although they couldn't attend, have agreed to participate in the consultation phase, because if committee agree today, we now have a consultation and engagement plan in place ready to be agreed with the service review team tomorrow, so that we can find out from all of the stakeholders what their views are. We're very conscious that we have 230 young carers in Dumfries and Galloway, and we're specifically talking with that service to have them come and talk to the service review team. So we're very conscious that we need to widen this, and we're also very conscious of the journey that young people take once they go out of our care and into social work care. So we want to make sure that we're trying to bridge that gap.
Thanks for your patience, Chair. Yeah, I appreciate the answer. I'm grateful for the answer. I hope that the committee will certainly take the view that their input's absolutely essential, and that we'd certainly like to see them participating. That will be very important, I think.
Robert?
Yeah, the church reps really support the support. Just for clarity, it is a report which is looking at universal support, mainstream support, and not merely additional support. In other words, we're looking at an integrated approach to support in schools, not only integrated, but also cross-sectoral. This will go from 3 to 18, I presume. So we're looking at a big picture here, not just simply additional support. For some of the documentation here is clearly ASL, some of the documentation is universal, and occasionally it's a little bit difficult to work our way through the different names and titles. Is it personal support, pupil support, additional support for learning, support for learners? And that is a bit of a nomenclature minefield. But my main point is it universal?
I think what I tried to do, not being for the ASL area of practice myself, was to create a logic path through the profile. Clearly I failed, but it was to try to say that, the purpose of the service and what all the different elements were. But it's fundamentally, the efficiencies are fundamentally coming from supporting learners, but we recognise that within universal support, there needs to be our general teachers need to be skilled up to be able to deal more effectively with learning needs. So this is about supporting learners. This review in particular is about the supporting learners service. But we want to be able to make sure that we have a strategy in place to build capacity under universal support so that we can target the resource we have in supporting learners to those most in need.
Yes, but it also includes, let's say, in the secondary sector, the traditional guidance support team, pupil support, principal teacher pupil support, all that has got to be incorporated into this web, if you like. It's a complex area, I quite agree with you, I'm familiar with it, but hoping that we're seeing a joined up thinking here, limited duplication, etc., etc. And whilst every teacher has a responsibility for pastoral support, we all know that. Nonetheless, there are promoted posts who have specific responsibility, and that those training needs also need to be addressed.
I think we recognise very much that building capacity in all of the strands is crucial, because thinking changes and experience changes, and so we're very conscious that to have a strategy in place that meets any gaps in provision with any potential retirements or whatever. It's very, we've got a very successful MA programme up at the university. We have 25 students at the minute that are involved in the additional support for learning master's qualification. So we need to pool all of that together and so that we can meet all the gaps.
Thanks, Chair. I'm looking at Appendix 1, the list of 29 aspects of this service as detailed on pages 85 and 86, and specifically the very last one, ASL Transport, which is a sizable proportion of the total. You and I, and most people in this room, all in this room, surely understand that sometimes it's necessary to won't use the word bundle, but it's more efficient to have children taken from one locality to another in order to deliver what they require, rather than employ an additional member of staff in one particular school, particularly in the rural areas. But the public perception is often this is a waste of money. But I think what we need to get out there is one, it's not a waste of money because it's cost effective, and two, we are working hard to make sure it's as efficient as possible, and the transport budget is minimised as far as possible. So I'm looking for assurance, and I'm sure I'll get it, that we are doing our best in that area.
Could I just say that we're also, in parallel with this, reviewing specifically with the manager of the service, transport, we're doing a separate review of this whole area, because it is a significant part of the budget, and particularly in terms of our relationship with social work services, we need to consider it jointly. So that is taking place as well.
Ian Dick?
Yeah, can I just ask where integration with leisure and sport fits into this review, or is this just purely for learning support? I'd have thought there might have been a place for such a review within here, or is that coming separately?
When we go to the consultation and engagement phase, which is next, that's when we will be seeking views from all partners who may have a role to play in this area. We need to specifically gather views from people who are already practitioners in the area, but we also need to know what that's like for people who are not directly involved. So our questionnaire has been designed so that it can fit a wide range of parts of our communities. So, and we're looking to have meetings as well as the questionnaire, so that we're able to talk directly to people about it.
So how's that going to look as far as reporting back here? I mean, will we have a specific report which shows exactly how we're engaging with leisure and sport?
If you absolutely, if that's what you're interested in particularly, then we can segment any responses that we get from the leisure and sport field from the questionnaire.
Well, it'll certainly be consistent with the strategic direction of budgetary affairs and cross-sectoral work at that level, and that was a specific area that we were very interested in seeing.
Ian Crothers.
Thank you, Chairman. I think I put on record as well just the thanks for all the work that's went into this as well, because it's a tremendous size of document. You can see there's been a lot of work and effort put into it. See, in regards to page 92, the top box in there, you get down to stage 8, you've got the challenge panel. See thereafter, could you just explain up until the end of that, April 2015, exactly what that means? And it refers to the engagement with the Education Committee Chair and Vice Chair and other elected members. How are they involved in relation to that? I don't know if you can hear me, Anne, or not. It's from the top of page, Appendix 2, page 4, which is page 92. from stage 8 on, after stage 8 on in that box. And also, if you could just address on the page below that in Appendix 2, we are above average, I think, in the amount of support we actually provide in Dumfries and Galloway. Just if you could touch on that as well, please, why that is.
Director?
In terms of engaging with elected members, we've had a lot of discussion around the table at the review team as well about the place of the Social Work Committee and social work members, and also, you know, and that I think that's something that we would appreciate advice on if that's an area that, you know, if these papers ought to be going to the Social Work Committee as well. Is it something that we need to be discussing with the Chair and the Vice Chair of Social Work Committee? We've had a lot of discussion about that because of the overlap. And these steps that are laid out in this appendix come directly from the Service Review Toolkit, which is the Council's process. Just to say in terms, I can't remember what you'd asked the other question was. The increase in numbers. Well, the 2000 and the Education Act for additional support for learning was amended in 2009, and the categories were increased. And right across Scotland, there's an increase in recording, but we recognise that possibly the guidance around identifying need maybe needs to be looked at again, and the thresholds, because we do have significantly higher number of youngsters identified by our schools that have needs, and so that's really one of the reasons for the scope looking at that in particular.
No, just thanks. So you're saying that the extra support in the Dumfries and Galloway is around a better recording and better actual, so we realise where that support's needed. And see, in regards to the first point, I think that's what you're saying, and if that's not the case, I don't know if I'm speaking loud enough into this mic, maybe too far away. If that's not the case, you could correct me, I think. And as far as the first, I realise there's a clear link, a strong link between, especially with the Health and Social Care Integration Bill going ahead, that we should probably talk strongly with the Social Work Services Committee, and whether that's via the Chair and Vice Chair or not, that's I've not got any real comments to make in regards to that. But it's in what I'd really like is the detail in regards to, you can see where it's coming to committee, but is there any engagement out with committee then with elected members? I suppose that's the bit I'm trying to pinpoint in regards to the process between the end of stage 8, the challenge panel, and to the final decision in April 15.
I think in terms of that, obviously this is a massive amount of work which we're undertaking. We do need to make sure it is going down the right route. So what I would suggest is possibly have an interim report comes to committee in September, for example, that allows us to get the work underway, so we begin to get some sort of idea of what sort of shape this review's taken, and then we can feed into that. So if we bring a report to the September committee, then we can once again review it, and if there's any changes need to be done as we perceive them, that's the time to do it before we come to the final report later in the year. Are members happy with that? Yeah.
Chair, I wonder if I could highlight one important matter. If you look at page 86 and the line, page 86 of 504, the line underneath the 4 planned outcomes. Now, I recognise that Councillor Dick, I think it was, who's proposed that we add in improvement of delivery of support for learners. I'm very conscious that in a service where capacities can sometimes be an issue, we're deploying a lot of resource at the moment into this huge piece of work to give the detail. We're also very clear that the service, we're clear about political sensitivities, and we're also clear that whatever comes out of the report, we think we will have streamlined and deliver in a better way. But we're also very clear that the service review process asks us to bring forward savings. And the line there is suggesting that one of the planned outcomes is to bring forward the possibility of a recurring contribution to council budget savings of between 5 and 20%. I just want to remind members, in order that we don't have any surprises at the end of the process, that that is one of the things that we believe that we're tasked to do in this agenda.
Yeah, I think that's quite true. But I mean, obviously, we are going to have to make savings, and that is one of the outcomes. But the other one is also to improve the deliverability at the end of the day. Gail?
Yeah, I appreciate what the director said, and it's absolutely true. But I think as well, we've had a system of support for learning in various strands, which I think after a long period of time does no harm to review. And I'm sure Andy would probably echo that as well. So I think this is a very valuable piece of work. You've answered my question on an interim report, so thank you for that. It was just at page 87 in the engagement category, makes reference to parents, carers, guardians, and then the National Parent Forum. Will you be engaging specifically with individual parent councils as well? Because certainly, I don't know about other members, but we're already having discussions at various parent councils that I attend about what budget savings could be coming in the future. And I have explained to them that a lot of that will be agreed on the back of reviews. And I think, you know, that they are your tool to get information out to your wider parent base, particularly the parents that are very difficult to engage with. So I wonder if we should specifically add in parent councils to that list.
We haven't, to be honest. We have a representative of PIN, the Parents Inclusion Network, on our review team, and they have access to 500 families. And that was going to be our main mechanism to engage with families, but also the National Parent Forum. That's another wider group of parents, but we haven't specifically identified parent councils, and maybe we should. In addition, we've got 38 groups that we've identified for special meetings, and we've got the questionnaire. That's where we're at the minute.
Gail?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very comprehensive list of people that you have to engage with, and it's under the engagement category. I just feel that your parent councils are the ones who are going to be immediately and directly affected by anything that we decide in the future. And I certainly don't want to be going to them this time next year to give them information. And even if it could just be, just a small, I mean, God, we've got tons here, how you actually narrow it down. I'm not quite sure, but I think we should involve the parent councils at some point along the way.
Director?
I think what we'll do is accept that fully and consider the best and most efficient way to do that. I know that if for example, we set up 100 meetings for the 100 schools that we've got, we know that doesn't work, but on the other hand, there must be a good way to make sure that parents have got every opportunity to be involved. So that's a welcome suggestion, and we'll work on that one.
Jim Dempsey?
Thanks, Chair. Page 310 in the report, or page 86, one of the planned outcomes, the first one is target resources to young people with greatest needs, and those identified in the SIMD, the Scottish Indices of Multiple Deprivation. And if you go to page 15 or page 103, where primary classroom assistants are referred to, it talks about currently allocated by role, staffing numbers based on entitlement, currently slightly over and being worked down. That seems to contradict what we're saying in terms of planned outcomes. I'm sure that's not the case, but I just want some comfort that we are indeed trying to address the area of deprivation where attainment isn't as it should be. And that does say that in one part of the report and seems to contradict it in the other.
That's not what's meant. I'm sorry about that. It's absolutely, classroom assistants are allocated on a role basis. Everybody else is allocated on a need basis. And what we're saying is that we need to pull that together so that we can use the full resource that we have to target those areas most in need. So if that's not clear, then I'm thankful for the opportunity to make it clear. This is absolutely about using all the resource we have to target those in greatest need. We're very clear. We've got a heat map of the SIMD and the local deprivation factors, and we're looking at, we're going to have to devise a mechanism to meet those needs in particular.
Thanks for that clarity. I maybe me to just step it.
Right, I might be being stippet, I know then. But on page 123, so the activity-based budget analysis, the figures for ESL and preschool, £276,074 seems very little. Is that, I take it as just for partner providers maybe? And is there figures of preschool for within the next figure, 5245? Is that with preschools within primaries as well? ESL support for preschools. 123.
Sorry, I'm not clear. Could you ask me that again so that I'm clear then, if I can give you an answer, if I have it?
Right. Well, the ESL and preschool, we've got 276,000. Is that from money for partner providers of preschool and ESL support within that, or in the ESL primary, is that preschool within primary with ESL support? Is that included, some figure included in that as well?
I suspect what the councillor is asking, we may not have the answer today, but what the councillor thinks asking is, or what the leader's asking, is that it seems, given that preschool is 3 and 4 year olds, that's a quarter of the total for primary and preschool, and you might have expected a higher figure than 276,000. And it was just to ask if there was any indication around why that seems quite a low figure.
We need to find that out. Sorry.
Can you find that out and email it to all members of the committee? Yeah. Ian Dick?
Thanks. Just in response to the Director's comment about the inclusion of another planned outcome, make it absolutely clear, it's not... very much aware of the fact that we're on tight budgets with the efficiencies requested. What this is all about is actually delivering what we're delivering at the moment in a better way, which may very well involve efficiencies. It's about the business model. I want to make that absolutely clear, because that's largely what a lot of the strategic budgetary work streams are all about.
I think that just so that you're reassured that the service review team are very clear that this is a great opportunity. Everybody has been very supportive and open to the review process. It's very challenging, but everybody sees it as an opportunity to put a microscope on a service area and to be able to consider how we can best use the resource in the future. So
that's very reassuring.
Do you have any more? Jim McComb?
Thanks, Chair. If we could go to Appendix 13, page 290. Find it here. One of the most encouraging things I find is the reduction in pupil exclusion. Could you tell me how this has been achieved, and is it contrary to the national trend?
Chair, I'd be quite happy to take that question overall. As was picked up in an earlier report around exclusions, we've seen a really significant and really pleasing reduction in the need for exclusion. Hopefully, certainly I started as director 6.5 years ago, and over the first sort of 4 or 5 years, there's really quite a dramatic drop. Now, there has been a national trend around reduction and exclusion. We were going further than that and doing better than the national trend. So we're pleased about that. However, we're quite clear that in the last year, it's crept back up again in primary and secondary. And again, some of the factors that were highlighted earlier, it could be a range of issues. We do have the transition to partnership head teacher working. So we've got new head teachers. We've got 6 new secondary heads out of 15 or 16, and sometimes people are, setting out their stall at the beginning of the enterprise of being a head teacher. There could be a range of reasons. We don't want to see it creeping back up further, but we can say that we have overall done very well in reducing the need for exclusion. I'm always wary of saying that reducing exclusion itself is a good thing. You don't want to reduce exclusion figures and it turns out the kids are misbehaving in school. That's no use. But it's about reducing the need, and part of it is about having other flexible opportunities for kids to take part in and participate in. Nonetheless, that said, and I'm conscious that any teacher out there will recognise there are some quite challenging youngsters, and sometimes there is a need to exclude. But it's trying to get the balance right that's quite important.
Do you have any more speakers? No? Okay, can we go to the recommendations? 2.1, we've considered the scoping template of the Support and Learner Service Review as laid out in Appendix 1. Everybody happy that we've done that? On 2.2, agree the scope and desired outcomes of the review, including additional areas detailed in Appendix 2. And I think in terms of the planned outcome is the addition of outcome 5 to improve the delivery of support to learners as a result of this process. Now, I do think it'll be very interesting to see what we end up with at the end of this review. And I'm sure it'll be a lot better than what we have at the moment in terms of joined up delivery. And also agreed to bring an interim report to the September meeting to see how the review is now progressing before the final report comes to the committee in November, and also to involve by one means or another parent councils in the engagement process in the most efficient way possible. Now, happy with that? Can I just ask, in terms of 3.14, the challenge panel, have we appointed an independent person who's the specialist, subject specialist, or is that still outstanding on page 82, 3.14?
No, we've identified personnel for every one of those, and we've sent out the invitations. We've not had a response from everybody, but we will send a reminder.
Okay. So, other than the exempt report at item 11, I don't have any urgent business. So, can we move to item 10 to consider adoption of a resolution to exclude the public from the meeting in terms of paragraphs 6 and 9 of Part 1 of Schedule 7A of the Local Government Scotland Act 1973. We're all in agreement with that? Okay. So if we can then move on to